Сегодня, когда он заявляет, что если Россия нанесет ядерный удар или химический по территории Украины, он там несет бред. Вы слышали вообще дословно, что он там прет? У нас будут последствия, они будут очень серьезные, Россия станет еще большим изгоем. Вот с чего взял, что мы будем ядерный удар наносить по Украине? Нам там жить еще. На Украине. У нас есть где бить, не надо. Рамштайн цель жирная, приятная, но несрочная. Зачем нам бомбить Украину или Германию? Британия есть. О, корень зла. Мне говорят, 5-я статья НАТО.
Когда... Надо было сегодня тогда.
Когда
там сегодня
Британия...
Те лучшие люди на похоронах. Прости, Господи.
Да, когда от Британии будет марсианская пустыня, 5-я статья НАТО о чем будет говорить? Защитить марсианскую пустыню? Там ничего не останется. Ну хотя бы мы вот этот, как он там, непоколебимый остров, да, вот будет поколебимый. Я вас уверяю, все дадут назад. А стратегические ядерные силы не задействуют.
Я напомню, что Великобритания тоже ядерная держава, и у них тоже есть ядерное вооружение.
Я могу напомнить, что у них 245 зарядов, которые при умном подходе дела, они будут моментально бескровлены. Мы посильнее в этом вопросе. Намного.
So I watch these pundit roundtables, and man, they live in a different world. First, I agree that Russia won't use nuclear weapons or chemical weapons in Ukraine. One of the reasons being why they said it makes no sense to do that to a territory you're trying to occupy. But more importantly, in focusing on what they talk about when it comes to nuking the Queen's funeral in the United Kingdom, I'm almost certain that the United Kingdom could handle Russia without the US help. But when they transition to these things, these types of hypothetical scenarios, they always act as if the US doesn't exist. And the reason they do that is because they know the US is untouchable when it comes to their abilities to project power. Meanwhile, Russia exists at our pleasure. These pundits live and breathe merely because the US has not decided it wants to be an expeditionary, imperialistic military taking swaths of land globally. We've watched your ragtag dogshit army of misfit toys struggle through the poorest European country for the last 7 months, and now it has me wondering if your nuclear weapons even work. It's as if you let everything go to shit, from your soldiers to your logistics to your maintenance and your equipment and your aircraft, but suddenly you decided to maintain your nukes as the crown jewel of your military? I don't think so. I think Russian nukes probably have fallen prey to just as much corruption, if not more, because none of you really actually think they would be used anytime soon. Because you don't really think the US is a threat, because you know Americans just don't care about you in general. We have bigger fish to fry. You created the scenario that you're now talking about in Ukraine. But you miss the overarching situation with regard to attacking the United Kingdom. America has 160,000 US citizens living in the United Kingdom right now. 5,000 of them, another 5,000 are visiting just to see the culture and whatnot. When Pearl Harbor took place, 2,403 Americans died. How many Americans do you think will die if you nuke the United Kingdom? Do you really think we'll do nothing? Because after Pearl Harbor, we went to war with Japan and dropped 2 nuclear weapons on their country and remain the only country to do so. 9/11. 2,996 died. It took us 10 years to find Osama bin Laden, but we found him and we shot him in the head in his bedroom at night in a country we weren't even at war with without them knowing until we left. What do you think we'll do to you when you kill tens of thousands of Americans in London with your nuclear weapons talk and actions? Speaking of 9/11, do you remember how focused the US became? How generally we all came together in a common goal of defeating whoever did this? Yeah, we found that common enemy. How do you think the US would feel about the Russians? The US has been pretty leery about Russia for decades now. You just need to give us an excuse. And an attack on the US or Canada or UK citizens, would do just that. Shit, you wouldn't even have to worry about Article 5 because the U.S. would be in your country so fucking fast that you would suddenly wonder why there's a Six Flags and a Chick-fil-A in St. Petersburg. We are 20 years ahead of you in technology, at least. We have lasers that shoot missiles out of the sky, and we have sword missiles that hit moving cars, so the kid next to the car is spared. In 1991, the U.S. defeated the fifth largest standing army in the world in their country. We exported that warfare and that destruction to their country, not ours. We did it in less than 6 weeks. And you know why? Because war is ingrained in our culture and our history, and there's going to be a lot of Americans that are offended by that. And they should be. It's not a good thing to be a war culture, but 225 of our 243 years, the Americans have been at war. You look at our culture, and you may say, look at the silly Americans arguing about whether a fictional mermaid should be black or white, arguing about whether there's enough people of color in a movie to represent accurately. You know what the top-grossing movie in the U.S. was this year? A movie that was so universally loved and touted by critics that it may be one of the greatest movies of the decade. It was Top Gun. A movie about blowing shit up using our awesome fucking military to take on a military that vaguely resembles a mix of Russia and China. We came together for that movie and high-fived. Our history is filled with that type of stuff. Washington crossing the Delaware on Christmas Day to slit the throats of the Redcoats. We were like, yeah, fuck yeah, that guy's so fucking awesome doing that type of shit that we made him president, and he's a national hero. We have a warfare-driven society. Now, smooth brains will point out Afghanistan and Vietnam, and you know what? You're right. We're terrible at nation building. We thought we could rebuild those countries like we did Japan and Germany, but no. We can destroy a country very quickly, but we can't build it up. So you know what? I say we just forego that part in Russia. We just blow them up and let it ride. Of course, this would be a defensive measure if they decided to attack the United Kingdom. We shouldn't be doing this preemptively, but don't think we don't have the capability to. So I watch these circle jerk roundtables that you have, and the common theme I'm starting to see is an underlying fear. You nervously make threats to try and inspire your population, but deep down you know if you have an ounce of intelligence rattling around in your skulls that you see your military taking a shit in Ukraine, you know that any scenario that you hypothetically create in which you nuke any country that the U.S. is allied with, specifically the United Kingdom, that the United States would turn your society into a society of women and children trying to figure out how to rebuild your cities after you bury all your men. Period.